Hi, and welcome to Look Up, a podcast where I admit I'm a hypocrite. I explore the use of phones in modern society and the addiction that tends to come from that, while also being addicted to my phone myself. It's an interesting one because it's an expanding journey where I try and knock my habit a little bit and speak to those who might be able to help me on my journey to do so. My guest for the podcast today is one of the first people that I reached out to. He introduced me to a concept that I'd never really thought of before. I'm sure that most people listening or watching will be the kind of person to pull their phone out and use their notes app for every little thought that they've got. What that does is lead you to reach for your phone more. My guest today is Joshua Chung. He is a student, but also a YouTuber who embraced the idea of using a notebook as their phone, or at least in place of their phone, for all these little tasks. For those of you watching, you'll see the notebook that he inspired me to buy and to use, and it is something that I've been dumping my thoughts into as a result. In today's conversation, we explore the use of that notebook, what spawned his idea to do it, the impacts, both positive and negative, that they've had on his life. I get a bit of insight from him on the younger generation's affiliation with social media and the use cases and standard use of phones by the younger generation. And I explore it and I see if it has any positive or negative impact, both in a general sense and from a mental health perspective from these people. It was an incredibly beneficial conversation, and all I can do is thank Joshua for his time and for being very open to having the conversation with me. Thank you, Joshua. And I hope that you listening enjoy the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. Thank you. Yeah, man. Like I said, look, thanks for coming on, and I appreciate it. And I really did. I like the channel.
Yeah,
I
of
like
course.
I like the video. I liked everything to do with that. What really intrigued me, for anyone who's actually looking on the video, you will note the notebook in my hand. That
Yeah,
is as an
yeah.
out that's as an outcome of yours and a couple of other videos that just really got me into this. And what it
Yeah,
is a reason to have something in my pocket that's not that phone.
yeah.
Talk to me about it. Why are you still doing it? Is it because I know for a fact in your video you'd said it was the kind of thing you were doing for like a week at the time, but it was a few months ago. I'm curious. Tell me everything.
Yeah, it started because I saw a video. It wasn't quite like I didn't steal a video or anything. It was
Hmm.
like this guy, he got this like $1 pocket notebook from the store and he's like trying to use it instead of his phone, but it wasn't very specific as to what he was writing. And so I was like, okay, I mean, I'm on my phone a lot, so I mean, I might as well try this. And hold on, let me actually, it's over there. One sec.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, this is the famed notebook. And I went to the store, picked it up. It was an excuse to get in another notebook because I love notebooks. Um, and I just put it in my pocket, and it was there with my phone because I have to contact people, and it's difficult to not have my phone on me when my mom's like calling me and my dad's calling me, and like I need to be scheduling stuff. Um, but it was in the same pocket as my phone, and anytime I wanted to grab the phone, just like impulsively to look at Instagram or like listen to YouTube or something, I would just retrain myself to grab the notebook. And yeah, I didn't know what to write in it initially, but I realized as I was on my phone less that the less and less stuff that was coming into my brain from external sources allowed my brain to actually produce stuff to output. And that's essentially just what I put in the notebook. And I bring it around sometimes now. I'm a lot better about not being on my phone. So I use it less as like a be on your phone less and more of like, oh, I need to jot down this like really good idea I had or something. Um, and honestly, this is where a lot of ideas for my videos come from. It's where I kind of do my in my journaling video, I was talking about how some people journal in the morning, some people at night. This is just kind of like as I go through the day, just like stuff like that. And yeah, that's pretty much how it started. And it was, I think, definitely pivotal in changing how I interact with my phone and my brain.
Yeah, no, for sure. So it's one of those things that myself, what I've done is like over the years, I've tried a dozen times with a dozen different books, and I went, if I get one that's slightly bigger, slightly smaller, slightly whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
and I've tried to journal, right? It's a thing that's like you watch any YouTube video about self-improvement, it's like journal, that's what you need to do.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the big tip. But what you tend to find is you get through maybe a certain issue or a certain whatever in your life and you journal through it, and that's great. But when the times are good, you're just like, oh well, this isn't really bringing me much benefit or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because what you've said there is doing it throughout the day as a continuous thing of almost like a brain dump.
Hmm.
Because that was something that I was actually going to ask you, because when I've seen this before, people are like, and here's the bullet journal that you need to buy, and here's the exact headline and
Hmm.
the way you do it, and this is how you write it.
Yeah.
And like that format structure for you, is it just a complete brain dump then?
Yes. So I tried bullet journaling so many times. Don't have, I think I have one of my old ones right here actually. And it was like, because I love being organized. I love having nice and neat everything. Like I had this whole like spacing guide for like where I need to put stuff. I had this beautiful like calendar,
Mhm.
and you can see it's completely blank. I just can't like
It's a
do
lot. Yeah,
that.
it's a
And
lot of
so
pre-work. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and it's just like the whole point of this was like I don't want to need to do stuff as a prerequisite to writing what I want to write down. And so if you look in here, it's literally just
Brain dump.
there's no
Yeah.
structure. It's just like, if anything, I just date stuff,
Yeah.
but that's the only real structure.
See, I do actually. I like that quite a lot. And what you said as well is in terms of the where when you reach for it, you go in and you're like, right, okay, so instead of socials, I will grab this instead, and I will
Mhm.
force myself to do it because it's something that like not to make some sort of a thing about it, but you're younger than I am. I'm
Yeah.
25, so it's one of
Mhm.
these things that from I was a really funny age where I was like 13 when social media really started coming into its own, like 2011, 2012.
Yeah, yeah.
And as a result, what you find is my brain was almost malleable at that point. So
Hmm.
I've got my brother, like my brother's 5 years older than me, my girlfriend's 5 years younger, and he's never had social media. She's always had it. And both of
Yeah.
them, they're not hooked on it, they're not whatever, because it's just
Hmm.
that they've all, it wasn't a big thing at any point.
Right, right.
Whereas it's one of those things for me that like I'm curious to know, because I actually don't know what age you are, if you don't mind me asking.
I'm 18 right now.
Yeah, 18. Okay, so
Mhm.
this is the prime example, right? So like from someone of your age, I'm so curious to know like what socials had as an impact in your life. Because obviously, even in your videos, you've described your phone as a pit of hell. Like it's coming from the
Yeah,
pits of
yeah.
hell. So it's that kind of
Yeah.
thing that I'm really curious to know what you view it as and what you view just phone usage in general as.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I read this somewhere. They said it's like a perfectly engineered like waffle of tech in your pocket. And it's true. It's really powerful. And obviously there are things that you just can't get rid of it for. Like I'm not going to switch to a flip phone because communicating would be so bulky and annoying. I can't send emails. Like there are things that I need it for, but when it steps beyond that, and especially um Instagram was something I was on all the time. And I was getting like news from Instagram. I was looking at just like brain rot memes on Instagram, and it was like, yeah, it was just not, there's nothing productive about it. So actually recently, like a month ago, I went and just unfollowed like all of these accounts that I was following. And so now I'm just following my friends. And
Yeah.
so it's truly just like social media. It's me and my friends. And I personally don't think there's anything like, people always say that social media sets like a standard of life that's like unreachable. I haven't had that experience. I have a pretty strong self-esteem, and it's like I just like sharing my life with other people. Um, and so in that respect, it's really nice to be able to keep up with my friends, especially as we're going to be going to college,
Mhm.
and stay in touch with them through Instagram. But when it becomes just like, I have like 30 seconds of free time, I'm gonna pick up my phone and look at like Instagram. I see people at like stoplights it's like a freaking stoplight. There's like 10 seconds and they're like looking at their phone. I'm like, man, this is not like, I don't know.
The one that I see, it's bananas to me. But obviously in London, you've got
Mhm.
the subway, the underground network, and
Yeah.
what's crazy to me about the whole thing is that what people will do is they'll preload it before they get on the tube, and like
Okay.
because there's no signal down there because you're
Yeah. Yeah.
underground, and as a result is
Mhm.
like you might get like 10 seconds of signal at each station because all the stations are Wi-Fi enabled or whatever,
Yeah.
and you see people scrolling social media and you're like, I know this isn't live. I know you've pulled this up about 20 minutes ago. And like
Yeah.
sometimes you're underground for a good 45 minutes and people are still, or they'll have, I think, was it TikTok implemented this feature recently where you can basically download the next 2 hours of TikTok that you're going to watch.
My
And you're sitting there,
gosh. I
yeah,
didn't know
and
that.
yeah, and it was only something I found out about it recently. Like it's a setting within a
Yeah.
setting, whatever. And
Uh,
it's one of these things that I find really interesting of like, as you say, yeah, it's crazy to me that you're sitting at a stoplight for 10 seconds and you will pull your phone out. You're sitting on an underground tube, you will pull your phone out. All the instances where you're sitting there, and the one that gets me is if I'm ever on a commute in the morning, like with this commute that I'm having to do for a new job,
mhm.
I'm going from driving to sitting on the tube. And
Yeah.
as a result, what I'm going to find is I've sat on that tube 100 times and counted how many people in that carriage is on their phone. There
Mhm.
might be like 15 people in that carriage, at least 10 are on their phone every
Yeah.
single.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like going through their notes, organizing their notes, or they're going through their
Mhm.
photo albums, or and it just begs the question as to why people can't just sit there. And what you actually
Yeah.
in one of your videos, I think it was the Cures for Phone Addiction video, which I thought was great.
Mhm. Thank you.
But it was what you described was yeah, what you described was just basically this necessity. What people are just so addicted to it now. It's scary. The amount
Mhm.
of time, like I've seen people do screen time that's just 7, 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
and like that was something that I wanted to touch on. Is since you've been doing this now for a number of months,
Mhm.
what has happened to your screen time? Has it gone down?
Oh yeah. It used to be actually like 6 hours. It was
Mm,
not like even 6 hours comparatively to like my
yeah,
generation is honestly like not bad at all. But this is with my so my iCloud account syncs my phone and my computer, and I use my computer for schoolwork
yeah.
and stuff. And so combined together, my daily average is hovering around 3 hours. And so
Wow.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's like with doing schoolwork on my computer. That might attest to how much homework I do, but
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah.
like 20 minutes of homework and the rest is sitting there.
Yeah, yeah.
No, like
But
that's crazy to me though, because like recently mine, I would say mine was, so because I'm on the wind down of this job at the minute, what you're finding is you're finding a lot of time where you don't have a lot to do. And they're basically going like, we have to retain you because in the UK it's very different to the States where like in the States they can go, you're fired and you're straight out of there. Whereas in the
yeah, yeah.
UK they go, you have a month, you have to work for us for another month, and you're like, okay,
I
great.
see.
And they
Mhm.
won't give you anything to do. It's kind of pointless. It's a silly system.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But as a result, you're sitting there and I'm spending more time at the minute than I otherwise would. And you're touching
Mhm.
7, even 8 hours on a day. And it just begs the question as to why. And the point that you made in that phone addiction video that I loved was in a week, you're losing a day a week.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if someone said to you, here's a box to put in your pocket and you will lose a day of your life a week, would you do it?
Yeah.
No one would touch it. But when
Yeah.
it's like, oh, but we'll actually design it so it's essentially a slot machine, would you do it now? And you're like, yeah, absolutely. Yes, sign me up. I'll pay $1,000 for that plus a
Yeah.
monthly plan. It's it's really, really scary. Like the rules
Yeah.
that you set out, in terms of like you set out rules for curing phone addiction, and
Mhm.
one was to put the phone as far away from the bed as possible.
Mhm.
It's a great point. The other one was to set social media to a downtime app, and I loved that one. And I will be honest,
Mhm.
post this call, I will be doing it because it's
Yeah,
something
yeah.
that, like,
Yeah.
do you still implement those rules on a day-to-day basis, or is it something you tried and it just wasn't really giving you the benefit?
So it actually does give me a huge benefit. One
Yeah,
thing is on days I have to wake up really early, I do have to put my phone next to my bed because there's this app that like tracks your sleep based on your movement and wakes you up in your like
yeah,
lightest phase of sleep. And so on those days, I actually notice that like I'm on my phone more. But
yeah,
on the days that it's away, it's like nothing. And the screen time thing for Instagram, I don't need it anymore because I
yeah,
just kind of like I'm not like, I hate I hate just like looking at Instagram for a long time. It just can't do it. It makes me feel like icky. And
I
I
think
think it's because of that that I
yeah,
yeah.
I think it's I think what you've actually done there, you've probably trained your body and your mind
Yeah.
to like
Hmm.
you've trained it out of your psyche to go, I will look at it for 2 hours, and you've almost just taught yourself a new thing.
Hmm.
Because that's it, it's just pure exposure, right? And it takes what, 4 weeks to form a habit. I reckon probably
Yeah.
after 4 weeks you were already going, do you know what, I don't need this.
Yeah.
But like people do these detoxes from social media, and I don't think they're long enough. So people are doing them, you know, 6, 7 days, and they're going, I did a
Hmm.
detox from social media. And it's like,
Yeah.
what you did was lose your charger. Like, it's not really an implementation. But
Yeah.
to really learn how to do these things, you do need more time than that, which is why I thought that
Yeah.
the actual timing of this podcast was interesting, because it was about 6 months after you started doing all that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, to what end? So, I am a total newbie here in terms of trying to get around phone addiction.
Hmm.
Purely from that social media downtime, in terms of, would you recommend putting all social media on a laptop and you go, I will check my laptop and that is what I will do? What are the tips? Tell me, because even like I'm sure you found more since doing that video, and I'm so
Hmm.
curious.
So what I actually found was that um in terms of like if access to social media at all, I deleted Instagram because and then I found that like even just keeping up with my friends is kind of an excuse to have it. I deleted it and I did not like care.
Mm.
And I didn't even check it on my computer. Um, and I don't know, I just I didn't really need to ever. And then I ended up having to get it again because oh, I forgot what it was. I think it was because college applications and stuff, and I needed to join like this UT something. It's like for the college I'm going to.
Yeah.
And so I had to get it again. And then I realized that I was like going on it more. And so for me, it has always been easier to just like cold turkey, like lose stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that having it on like a computer is definitely better than, having it on your person all the time.
Yeah, because it's something that I'm really tempted to do, because obviously we do it with email. Like no one sits and checks their email, and realistically,
Yeah.
even though people have email on their phones, like I do
Mhm.
for work and stuff like that, and no one, even though the mail app is there, no one's going in there and scrolling it, because what they can do is
Mhm.
they'll go. There's a video I was actually watching, ironically, on social media the other day,
Yeah.
where what they were doing is they were defining things by, is it a phone, is it a thing you do with your phone, or is it a thing you do
Mhm.
with your laptop? Like no one's booking flights on their phone, right? You're
Yeah.
setting up a
Yeah.
that's a laptop thing.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing of, in my head, maybe it's the case for everyone, maybe it isn't, I don't know. Like checking emails is a computer job, it's not a phone job, and like composing and writing and stuff.
Mhm.
Whereas, and that's kind of the reason that no one's screen time is mail for ages.
Yeah. Yeah.
um but things like social media, it's ingrained in our heads that it's a phone thing. It's
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
whereas like when it first came out, obviously like phones weren't capable enough to do it.
Mhm.
So, you had Twitter, you had Facebook and all this kind of stuff. And what you found was you were sitting down in an evening going through Facebook for 25 minutes, and
Yeah.
your messages was like, it wasn't an app on your phone, it was a row of
Yeah.
tabs at the bottom of your screen. Like, I've been around since like I remember, oh my goodness me, MSN Messenger. That was the first one.
Okay.
That was the first, and then it was Skyping people. Then it was,
Yeah. Yeah.
God, I feel bad for Skype. It doesn't have its reach anymore. It really did die a death.
Yeah.
Um, but all these social medias and all of it, I'm trying to find a way, and I do think the point that you made about having it on a computer, making it less obtainable. I think it's an interesting point, and I think it is one that I'm probably going to implement, because
Mhm.
it's just there.
Yeah. I mean, like I think I'm a little more different than people in this respect, but like even having it on a computer doing some kind of a like a middle ground
Mhm.
solution doesn't really work that often for me. For
No.
me, it's like all in or all out. I don't know why. That's just the way it works the best for me.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I tend to be quite similar. Like I
Hmm.
remember, was it, I'm one of these people that whenever I work out, it's either 6 days a week or I don't do it.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, and
Hmm.
then what you tend to find is whenever I go to start a hobby or a habit, it's like,
Hmm.
oh great, let me do it for all of my attention and time, and
Yep.
then you go,
Yeah.
oh, I'm really burnt out from doing that.
Yeah, yeah. It's the
Um,
same for me.
no, fair. I think it's yeah. I think whether or not it goes on a laptop or what, because I know myself, the way that I would love to do it, and I don't know if it would work, would be to schedule it in like an event and go, okay, this is my 25 minutes to check social media at 7 p.m. when I've had my dinner or something. But yeah, I
I
know it probably would just become a slippery slope.
I honestly think that if you were really disciplined about it, and set like hard screen time limits on like built
Yeah.
into the phone, that honestly might be a really good idea. I think,
What, just schedule it and just go, this is
yeah,
7 p.m., like a
like at
meeting.
7 o'clock, like I'll take 25 minutes, like go through everything, and then I'm done. And I feel like that's better than just like throughout the day being like, oh, I'm gonna try to use it, but as little as possible, because that could rack up.
Oh,
But
God,
if
yeah.
you
But
have,
well, put it this way. Think about how many, and an example that I'm thinking of is my girlfriend at the minute because I text her throughout the day.
Mhm.
And what you tend to find is how many messages do you need to send to get your point across? Like
Yeah.
what you're doing is you're getting a message, immediately replying to it because
Hmm.
I don't know, that's just the way I am. But if you said to yourself, okay, if you need me for something urgent, ring me.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I feel like I feel like the younger generation doesn't ring each. I sound
Yeah, we
about a
don't call
thousand
anymore.
years old.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely sound so old as if I'm not 25. But like even whenever I was growing up, you called people. That's what like I still call people now, and they're like, "Why
Yeah,
are you
yeah,
phoning me? This is so intrusive." And it's like because you have a
yeah,
phone. That's what you do with it.
yeah.
No, it's like if even checking social media, how much time? Because you go, oh,
Hmm.
okay, well, I need to check my messages on Instagram. Oh, well, I'm really curious to see what, I don't know, so and so said on X, formerly Twitter, or whatever.
Yeah,
How much time would that take to do in a day if you scheduled it realistically about 15 minutes
yeah.
to do your actions on social media for the day?
Hmm.
And it's one of those ones that, yeah, I think you're right. If you were disciplined enough, I think it would probably work. It's a question
Yeah.
of whether or not I am, because I know for a fact my willpower goes out the window when there's a cookie in the room, for God's sake. Like I don't my willpower is so low that I'm having to start a podcast to not have my phone be the core thing that I do in a day. It's such a convoluted solution to such a simple problem because you would just say, well, just don't use it. It's like, yeah, I could do that, but it's there, so of course I'm going
Yeah,
to use it
yeah.
all the damn time.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think it's a really really interesting problem. But like, what you're probably finding like, do you find this like in terms of like I said with obviously you're 18, like, do you find it
Hmm.
you're actually making it an effort, right, to be
Hmm.
a lot more intentful with what you do?
Hmm.
Do you find that in your sort of age group that phone use, like you said yourself, 6 hours isn't that bad with in the circles that you're hanging around? Do you
Yeah.
tend to find that like some people are like 10, 11 hours and just absolutely dropping every part of their life to stare at a screen?
Yeah, I don't remember who, but we were talking about it at school, and people were like pulling up their screen times, and it was like double digits. I was like, what do you even do in the rest of the day? Like, is your phone just like on in your pocket? Like, I just don't under I
You
cannot
don't understand
comprehend.
how someone could look at it for 12 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, like what do you? That's half the day. I mean,
Well,
it's
I
like,
think what scares me about it though, and obviously this is specific a social media point, but it's like you made the point earlier that like it's about what information you're looking at. You want to look at something, you look at that exact thing. You don't get 10 different other things loading your mind,
mhm,
right?
yeah,
And as a result, what you tend to find is absolute information overload, which
yeah,
scares the pants off people.
mhm,
It really terrifies them. And then you get all these like, I mean, for God's sake, if you went onto any social media right now, surely the world would be the scariest place on earth.
yeah, mhm,
But like even the older generations, like my parents, they're quite old, or like they were quite old whenever they had me, and as a result, they're older parents for a 25-year-old.
yeah,
Like they're in their 60s now, and it's one of those ones where like they don't get it. They don't look at any of it. But
mhm,
we tried to get my mum on social media. I can't remember which one it was, just for purely function purposes to go, we will need to reach you in this way.
yeah,
And you're walking in the kitchen and just immediately hooked, right? Instantly hooked.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas, like, my parents grew up in a time where, like, the Cold War was going, like, these were big things, and they
yeah,
just
yeah,
they didn't care, right? It
mhm,
wasn't in their radar, it wasn't in their bubble. And
yeah,
what you've got is now today, it's like, oh, I wonder how the world's doing. It's not what's in the street outside. It's, oh my God, the world's about to end. Oh my God, drones
yeah,
have been
yeah,
drones have
yeah.
hit. It's about to happen to me specifically, and I need to know
Yeah.
about it all day.
Yeah.
And I think that, and then as a result, then you've got like, I mean, for disclaimer reasons, I have to say there's no proof of what I'm about to say, but like anxiety things are going through the roof, right?
Yeah.
Mental
Hmm.
health is such an issue. And
Yeah.
either we just got really good at identifying it,
Yeah.
or there's something else at play. And
Hmm.
funny enough, it tends to peak around 2015 when social media became the norm, is that
Yeah.
everyone just started getting really anxious all of a sudden.
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
and I think it's I don't know, that maybe that's just a personal opinion. Maybe that's something that I see whenever I look out at it. But I think if you're constantly being told how terrible the world is,
Yeah.
you don't think the world's a good place, and you end up actually in a pretty dark place, you know?
I definitely agree. I mean, when I was using Instagram as like my primary source of basically just general information, like that's not good.
Yeah.
Um, I was constantly like, wow, this everything kind of sucks, and like what you were saying, and I deleted it, and then I was just like, I don't give a crap about what is going on, like that has nothing to do with me, and like I don't know. I mean, when there are really crazy things that go on that's like world scale,
Yeah.
then it comes out on the news. I like see it in like a restaurant or something, or someone will tell me, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty bad. But these like little minute things, like I remember there was this time whenever all of these trains were derailing,
Yeah.
and then everyone was covering it. I was like, oh my God, like what is going on with the trains? It's like nothing's going on with the trains. Like this is what happens, but they're just covering it. And so like I just find it so much. I agree with what you said about the anxiety. I think it's like a combination of being hyper aware of like tiny, tiny things that are going wrong everywhere. And then another trend of kind of almost glorifying it. That's also my opinion. I think that it has gotten to a point where like it's almost good to people are like kind of almost boasting about these things on social. It might just be what I see, but I
Hmm.
think that it's creating this like chamber where stuff is just bouncing off each other and getting worse and worse.
Oh,
And
I
yeah.
would be inclined to agree for sure,
Hmm.
right? It's one of those things that, as well as that, like it's just I don't know. I think the world is like I don't get me wrong. I check the news when I'm back home, right? And
Yeah.
I live in London. My accent would tell you I'm definitely not,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like in Northern Ireland, it's just like Ireland's a lovely place.
Hmm.
And it's really calm and the big news, like if you check local news back home, it's not like, oh my God, everything's going wrong. It's like a
Yeah.
dog found a stick today. And you're like, oh, that's great. That's I'm so
Yeah.
happy for that dog. Um, but what you tend to find is when there is something seriously wrong, you will find out about it, right? You will
Hmm.
know if you need to know. Like if I phone home and my mom will go, did you hear about this? And that's it,
Yeah.
but what you tend to find is an opinion, obviously, when you're informed of something, like when someone's telling you a piece of information, you're storing it because your brain believes it's for you to know. This
Hmm.
will impact you in some way. And I think what we're getting worse and worse at as a society is going, okay, what is my issue? What am I like? What do I need to note down? Like imagine you've got your notebook in front of you. What do I need to make a note of for later?
Yeah.
Will I need to read back on this, or is someone just telling me stuff that will piss me off multiple times a day?
Right.
And it's something that the older generation's so good at, and I am really jealous of it, is they know when something will not concern them, and they'll go, I don't need to know about that. See you
Hmm.
later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not my problem. See you. And it's I think what we're getting worse and worse at as a society is everything has to be our problem. Like
Yeah.
we have to
Hmm.
solve every single issue, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it's the younger and younger the generation, the more and more I'm seeing it. Like my generation, bad for it. Like they really, really are. But like I'm sure I'm sure you see it. Everyone has to be aware of every single point on a certain
Yeah.
issue, and you're going, does it matter? Like sometimes it does matter, right? And sometimes there's social change, big change, really big things that need to change,
Hmm.
and everyone it becomes their problem, right?
Hmm.
But whenever it's like, I don't know, have you heard that we've got too many potholes? And you're like, oh no, what? That's terrible. I'll make sure to note that down for when I need to give
Yeah.
a shit about it, right?
You become a pothole activist, and it's like,
Yeah, exactly, right. It's like,
yeah.
but whenever I think you're right, I think everything just bounces off the walls. I
Hmm.
really think it does. I think the more and more you see it, and the more and more, and what it allows you to do as well is like, not to get conspiratorial about it, but what it allows you to do is when you back in the day, back in the olden days of the early
Mhm.
2010s. Um, but what you had to do was you'd sit in a room and you'd be talking about something. Someone would disagree with you, someone wouldn't. And you go, okay, I can see all sides of an issue. I can see all sides of a problem, whatever,
Mhm.
right? What you then end up doing today is you go, right, well, I don't really like that. So I'm going to listen to what everyone says that I agree with. And
Yeah.
then whenever you have a real life
Mhm.
conversation, because God forbid those ever happen anymore, you're like, you're so shocked, but that someone would maybe disagree with you. You're like, what?
Yeah.
Disagreement? That's terrible.
Mhm.
It's it's a weird one because I think what it's done, and then just landing back to the social media point in general, is it's not it's not ruined our ability to have social interaction, but it's changed what we expect from a social interaction.
Yeah.
Because you can just turn something off and you can not see it and whatever, but
Mhm.
whenever it's whenever you're in person, that's not how the world works.
Yeah.
And people do forget that social media is not the real world. If you go outside, like you
Mhm.
could think the world's terrible, and then you'd sit in a pub or you'd sit in a cafe or you'd sit in whatever, and someone's like talking about their kid did really well in school, and you're like, here, do you know what? Yeah, absolutely. There's things to be found, and there's light to be found in every situation.
Yeah.
As you say, when an issue is big enough, you will find out about it. Like you will find out about wars going on around the world. Like it will
Right.
engage
Right.
you in some way.
Yeah.
But whenever it's something small, whenever it's something minute, just not care about it. No,
Mhm.
know when it's and I don't know. You could disagree with me, you could agree with me. I don't know, but it's about knowing when it's your issue, and it's about knowing when do you need to open your phone? Do you need to look at everyone's life? Is everyone's life your concern? I
Right.
appreciate that
Yeah.
was a mad ramble there, like, but I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
No, yeah, I completely agree. And I think that that could be, or probably is, one of the fundamental issues with social media is that, like, I mean, every time you scroll one post is another, like, pretty decent chunk of something possibly important. And then scrolling through hundreds of these. And it's like you have all these things that if they're all, there's these things about like people saying, oh, I see people die on Instagram every day, or like these terrible issues that like always get reposted to stories. So you're getting this all in your brain. And like you said, it's like an overload. It's like I don't need to know all of this stuff, but I don't have a choice when I'm just taking it all in. And then like to your other point of ruining kind of social interactions is on social media, you can take a post and like repost it to your story. And then people have to look at it, but you don't often, if people respond, you can ignore it. People often don't respond. It's like you get your little soapbox and you can promote your opinion with zero pushback. You can just ignore all the pushback.
Mhm.
And I think that's so dangerous. Having all these issues come in and then being able to just like debate stuff, but not have any actual debate. It's just like you pushing out all this stuff. It's like not good for anything.
No, I'd be inclined to agree. And I think on the point of overload, I think like what would be really, really lovely would be like the equivalent of a Twitter, right? You see 5 posts a day. You open
Yeah.
it, you see 5 posts a day, it shuts. And the second you've clicked your fifth post, the app shuts down. And you go, okay, I've
Mhm.
seen everything I need to know. Obviously, that is not a good business model and would do terribly. And as a result, it does not exist as
Mhm.
an app, right?
Yeah.
But even things that start with good intention, even social media that starts with good intention, the example of Be Real, right? Be Real is the big one that like that had the
Yeah.
best intent. That was meant to be the thing you opened once a day.
Mhm.
Then they started introducing late Be Reels, which notified you every single time someone posted. So the
Yeah.
app is now notifying you 20 something times a day for the
Mhm.
average person. Then it introduced, oh, well, we've got Niall Horan and all these football or soccer clubs on here. And also, like, Nike is on here and Adidas is
Mhm.
on here. Like, we will tell you, you need to know what Adidas is doing today. It's
Yeah.
important
Yeah.
for you
Yeah.
to know this information. And you're like,
Mhm.
oh, of course it is. Yeah, I'll follow that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
something that starts, it almost gets corrupted the longer it goes on. And they all tend to follow the same path as we will notify you all the time. You will
Yeah.
not. And I'd be curious to know how many notifications a day. So, like, how many notifications a day someone will get and how many of them are messages or direct information.
Uh, you mean for me, like
Just
just personally?
just as it well both. I think it just as a general thought. I'd be curious to know yours, like, but what percentage of the notifications you get actually make a difference to your life, or do you just immediately ignore?
So yeah, I actually am almost programmed to just ignore any Instagram notifications, any like YouTube notifications. Like I do not care. I I usually turn them off. I have them on
Yeah.
because I've had a lot of messages coming in and I missed a lot of them from my YouTube channel and I feel
Yeah.
so bad. So I need to have those. But the import, I guess there's like a neural connection in my brain I've made. If someone needs to tell me something important, it's over messages. And so when I see like the green messages, I'm like, okay, this is important. I'll respond to that. But I think a majority of the social media notifications are just junk. It's just to get you to get on the app. And it's like, I don't care. Instagram is so bad with this. They say like someone like blank John Doe, who you know, also commented on Jane Doe's post. I'm like, I don't care, man. It's like what? And it's just blatantly trying to get you to be on the app and it's just junk.
Yeah, I think it's the one where if you've commented on it, you will get notified
Yeah.
anytime
Yeah,
anyone
it's
else comments
so
on them.
stupid. Yeah, it's dumb.
No, like on the Instagram one specifically, like I've turned them off unless it's a DM or a like. I don't see
Yeah.
it, right?
Hmm.
Which works well. To be fair, I think Instagram is one of the ones I would say out of every app on my phone, Instagram is probably the social media I open the late. Well, other than Facebook, but I think Instagram's probably the one I open the least.
Hmm.
And I think it does have a result of that because you don't get an output. You want to see maybe 5 stories, 10 stories, and you go, "Oh, I actually talk to that person on a daily basis. Let me
Yeah.
check what they're doing because I'm actually quite
Hmm.
curious." But compared to the, oh, well, you actually follow 600 other people, and as a result, you will be known what they do in a day, all
Yeah.
day, every day, and
Hmm.
that's the only one that, to be fair, I do actively get tired about and get tired of and just go, nah, this isn't for me. Whereas
Hmm.
I think the one that gets me, and I think the one that's almost exploded it for me and has caused this issue is TikTok. Like I
Hmm.
held off for so long with that app, and I was like, "Do you know what? Okay." And it was during lockdown, and I was like, I'll download it and it'll pass some time or
Hmm.
whatever. That thing is like heroin in my pocket. It
Yeah.
really, like, it's like, do you know what I need to? It's like, and it's so much overload, right? Because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, here's a dog. Also, here's an explosion that happened in Gaza. And you're like, oh, those are two identical pieces. I need
Yeah.
to know both of those the same amount. And it's like, oh, this is a fun app for cat videos and stuff. And it's like, well, actually, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like you'd be able to tell me more. Like, but if TikTok is that the one? Like, what's the worst one in your opinion?
So I actually have never downloaded TikTok.
Good for you.
I don't plan on it. Like I see all my friends scrolling TikTok and I'm like, I'm not doing that. And for me, I'll say that and this could be for other people too, but there's this kind of I've noticed this trend of I listen to a lot of YouTube videos with YouTube Premium,
Hmm.
podcasts, like TED Talks and stuff.
Yeah.
And I get in this mindset of like, this is actively in like expanding my knowledge,
Hmm.
but it's really the same as scrolling like TikTok, I think. I think it's a like almost a deception. If I just have it all the time in the background, I'm not actively learning. I'm not like, you know, placing this in my brain to recall later. I'm just kind of like intaking it and it's like almost noise.
Background
And I
noise. Yeah.
think that and I think that when even maybe in TikTok and stuff, you get stuff that is potentially educational and it's like this is good for me to be listening to this. But it's just racking up all of these things in your brain like when it seems good but it's actually not is like the most dangerous because I think people know when it's just junk. I like I don't know. Like don't tell me that people who scroll on TikTok for like 12 hours are not like, "Oh, this is good for me." It's like I feel like you would know.
I think to an extent, right? So I think TikTok's a funny one because people, as you say, people know it's junk. Like you open TikTok,
Yeah.
it's like smoking. No one's opening a packet of cigarettes going, I think this is so good for me. No,
Yeah.
you know it's terrible for you, right? But it's just like,
Hmm.
oh, well, it passes the time. Or in terms of a smoker, they're like, oh, it gets me outside in some fresh air. There is a benefit, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
I think the podcasting one's really interesting because I've openly admitted by doing this podcast, I am the world's biggest hypocrite, right? I'm like, I need to get off digital media. Also, here's my new form of digital media.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it's one of those ones that I find really funny that it's, I don't know, it's such a funny one because I actually do see your point. It's like you're mentally checked out. You're
Hmm.
not in the moment. And even then, and you'll get some people who are like, oh, well, actually, I only have one AirPod in, so I'm really present. And it's like, no, you're
Yeah.
not. If I was
Yeah.
talking to, Like it happens all the time. Like even my girlfriend, she'll be schooling or whatever, and I'll say something to her, and she's like, "No AirPods, no nothing." But you'll say something
Yeah.
like straight past, right? She will
Hmm.
not hear it because
Yeah.
her mind is mentally checked out. And a bunch of people that I know, I'm using that example because it happens to me very, it happens close to me a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but like it's an interesting one because, as you say, with a podcast or a TED talk, like you think you're being
Hmm.
really good, you think you're being really educational, and you're like, I'm going to make a
Yeah.
note of all of this. I'm sure I should be able to recall every TED talk in history from memory. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's never going to happen.
Hmm.
But as a result, yeah, you're right. I actually see your point. I think when it seems like it's, like for example, the one that was it the email newsletter? Oh my goodness me, this is going to bother me. There's an email newsletter company that emails you the news once a day, and I can't remember
Okay.
what it's called. It's really going to bother me, but as a result, you end up clicking in, and then they go, "Well, here's all of our other services," and then you end up just down a wormhole at that point.
Hmm.
I think you're right. I think when it seems good, if something seems good, why would you be getting it for free? Like,
Right. Yeah.
why would you be getting it for free? It's
Hmm.
not good. There's something there. You have to see
Hmm.
past it. And TikTok, like, fair play to you for not downloading it. It is hell. It is the worst thing in the world. Because what ends up
Yeah.
happening, like, it's just, I think Reels is a better alternative
Yeah.
because it's crap. Like, no,
Okay.
they haven't got the
Yeah.
algorithm down. So it's like, oh, here's six
Yeah.
videos that are all kind of the same. And then you go, oh, I'm bored of that. And you close it.
Yeah.
Whereas TikTok's algorithm, it's so dangerously good
Hmm.
that it's like, it's predicting your next video as you're watching the current video.
Right. Right.
And you're going, oh, you spent 3 seconds on this, but you spent 10 seconds on the thing before it. We'll program it more to the thing before it. And you end up so funneled. And you're
Yeah.
just being told things that, like, especially on the, what I find interesting is, especially on the opinion pieces, right? And opinions
Hmm.
on anything, it's not a political thing, opinions on any issue. But
Yeah.
then you hear it 100 times and you go,
Hmm.
oh, this must be the truth. This
Yeah.
must be what everyone on earth thinks about. And then you go, talk to someone in real life, they go, that's a load of crap, right? And as a result, you end up with a society that, it's just a society that's more and more divided until they speak face to face.
Yeah. And yeah, I was thinking of a way to like put this in, but when we get so much information in, it like removes our ability to think for ourselves. And
Oh,
so
I
like
completely agree.
you just get all this stuff and it's like, yeah, like you said, it's like one opinion just being shoved in your face. And it's like it slowly just like breaks down any barrier you had to it. And then even if it's just becoming desensitized to something, it's doing something to you that's like not okay. And then you start losing the ability to like take in one piece of information and then evaluate it and then form an opinion on it because it's just like a machine gun of ideas just like in your face and it's like I can't process all of this and I don't know, I just it's detrimental.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it is detrimental. What I think is actually quite interesting, and what I'm saying is sort of as a broader point here,
Mhm.
is it's almost better to be closed in. It's almost better to look within yourself. It's almost better to go, okay, what's my thing on this? Or instead of getting opinions from other people, I'll write something down in a book, or I'll read a
Mhm.
book from somewhere else, or I'll get I'll sit down and read one book, and it's almost,
Mhm.
it's the old adage, right? It's less is more. But
Mhm.
when it's you and it's your thoughts and it's your stuff and you're writing in a book, you're getting what's actually in your brain.
Yeah.
You're not having it put there for you.
Yeah, and then yeah, and so you form your idea and it's your idea and then you can have a conversation in real life with someone
Uh-huh.
and then instead of just yelling at each other, you're evaluating each other's ideas and then because I'll say I'm lucky to be in a private school where
Yeah.
people around me think, and my girlfriend especially, I'm so thankful that she just does not have social media. Like she's never had it.
Wow.
And we just we just talk about stuff and then it's like we bounce ideas off each other. We evaluate them individually. There's multiple instances where I've changed my mind, she's changed her mind.
Hmm.
That's just not something you see when people are on social media all the time. And I think it's really it's kind of scary that like we can't um meaningfully change each other's minds about stuff anymore.
I think it's, yeah, because whenever you're chatting to someone about something like that and you change your mind, it's usually because you see how passionate they are through body
Yeah.
language. It's like that one. It's mad to me that your girlfriend doesn't have social media at all. That's insane to me. Like,
It's
fair play, because it's one of those ones, like,
yeah.
especially in your generation, like, that's rare, man. That is
Hmm.
not the norm. And what you find is, like, I'd be curious to see, like, I'd be curious to see in 20 years the difference between someone like her and someone like, who uses social media all the time. Like I was talking to someone the other day, and I'm actually doing another recording soon where I'm going to be speaking to someone who does not own a smartphone at all, refuses
Yeah.
point blank,
Okay.
no. And it's such an interesting point, right? And these people are like, they're
Hmm.
very successful careers. And what you tend to find is they devote all of their time to it. And not the
Okay.
phone thing, but like one, for example, is a professor in sociology, and she is top of her field for it because she's not sitting there going, well, that was a long, hard day at work. Let me just scroll. She goes, no, no, no. Well, actually, someone said a really interesting point. Let me look into that. Let me look further. And
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
dive into single issues. You dive into yourself and you actually discover more about yourself by not seeing other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
It's an interesting point. Fair enough. I think it's an well, no, look, do you know what? It's an interesting point. And what I'll say is, man, in all seriousness, fair play because it's rare to see someone in your generation who's making an active
Yeah.
step to be a bit more detached from it and try, well, not detached, but just more intentful and making sure that they're making the right choices and doing it the right way. And what I'll say is, number one, the book is in hand. I am trying, and I will be putting the limits.
Yeah.
I'll be putting the limits in place because do you know what? It's something realistically, it's the whole point of why I'm trying to do this, right? You have to know when
Yeah.
to look up from it. You have to know when it's not the real world. You have to know when it's a load of rubbish. So, like, I think we'll wrap it up there. But man, you're absolutely top. Like, thank you for doing this because it's genuinely been an amazing conversation for me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for doing this. This is, I don't know, this could help a lot of people.
Well, this is yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. So
Yeah.